everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Spotlight with Fatima. On today's episode, I have with me Mr. Biodun Adebiyi, otherwise known as Batik. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so very much.
So, who is Biodun Adebiyi?
Thank you very much. As you have rightly called it, my name is Biodun Adebiyi, and I can also be called Biodun. Now, the batik, which I'm sure we're going to go into later, is something that came later.
Okay.
So, but my name is Biodun Adebiyi. I'm a music educator, I'm a performer, I'm a trumpet player, and I play a few other, when you play any other instrument apart from piano, or the organ, or the keyboard instruments, you must have an idea of the piano.
That's
so
right.
I play a bit of that too.
Okay.
And of course I teach music. I've taught in Nigeria. I just retired after 20 years of teaching, and I'm here now. So that is what Biodun, or who Biodun Adebiyi is.
Absolutely interesting. So by here you mean the United States?
United States of America.
Okay,
yes,
just to
yeah.
be clear.
Yes, because it's a global thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to batik.
Yeah.
I know batik to be a textile term,
Oh yeah.
used in tie and dye or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Oh,
So
yeah.
how did you came by that name?
You see, when you talk about genre of music or names given ascribed to some styles of music, they are not original. For example, the kind of music from the Yoruba part of Nigeria called Juju music. Juju initially wasn't a kind of music, it was something else. It was later adopted. Even Fuji, we all know that Fuji is a mountain somewhere, but later called. So to start a genre of music and then ascribe a name to it is not anything new. Now, batik itself, when I was trying to come up with an identity, the person that we did it together now asked me a few questions, asked the kind of training I had. I started as a traditional musician, a Yoruba man from the western part of Nigeria, a cultural person. So there was nothing to be learned. I know my proverbs. I could hear the talking drum. When talking drums speak,
Yep.
you could hear it. So I knew I was very well brought up concerning that. Now I went to church music as a chorister in church, in an Anglican church. So I got very well trained, joined the choir from the age of 4, and so as a church musician, from there it was very easy for me to get to classical music, then high life, jazz and all that, and every other thing. So we were looking for a platform to bring everything together.
A sort of identity.
So we came into why not batik? And that's how batik came into being.
Wow, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
you were able to make that connection from textile.
Textile,
Think about
yes.
what it implies in textile
Yes.
to music.
Yes.
That is absolutely
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
That is great. Who were your musical mentors? Where did you start from? Who did you look up to?
The very first musical mentor I had was my organist and choir master in church. I started as a member of the choir at Anglican Church, Yemetu Ibadan. And then the people that I knew then, there were 3 of them: Papa, Sukwadewusi, of blessed memory, then Papa Iye, also of blessed memory, and one man that was a young man then. He was very young, but he was the most versatile of them all, Mr. Lagbaja, who was they were the 3 people that when they came to music, that I got to know of. And then later, some other churches in Ibadan too. Papa Omidla Olomideyi, Papa Akitunde Akiseyinde, Mr. Kayode Oni, of blessed memory. He was a very young man then, talking about 1970. He came back around 1974-75, and then was the organist at St. Peter's Arimo. Then we were choristers at St. Paul's Yemetu then, and it was the Mandators then had lots of very good musicians that were looking up to the Mr. Bokno, Soji Bokno, who later became a teacher at Polytechnic Ibadan. So these were the people that we knew then as the musical mentors, singing, playing the organ, and then later other genre of music started coming in, and there were shifting of mentorship and all that.
That is interesting. I'm quite familiar with some of those names that you mentioned. These are great musicians of the, would you call them first generation or second generation of Nigerian classical musicians?
They were the second generation. The first generations were the Fela Egypt, the T.K. Phillips.
That's right.
Then they mentored the Olalomideyis, the Akitude, but those Ibadan people. And Kayode Oni was younger, but he was part of their generation too. Yeah.
Interesting. So has it always been the trumpet for you, or was it at some point you decided to start? Did you always play the trumpet? Just to put it down.
No. Now, I say this, from experience, from relationship with my contemporaries and seniors, and from my scholarship, having studied music. When you see an African playing an extraneous or exotic musical instrument like trumpet, like organ, like piano, somehow he didn't start from there. Some of them must have played agbamole, akuba, agogo, shekere before. Why? Because African instruments is rhythmic, very rhythmic, and just like the theory of African pianism by Professor Akinyuba, which states, that when you play the piano or the organ as an African, there's this rhythm. You don't need to do any agogo or shekere when you are playing African instruments. That tempo perpetual of jam, 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 jam. It gives you
rhythm.
So I remember the Mr. Lalo Ijadola that I mentioned when we were growing up. This man, everybody, of all the three organs that we had in church then, people preferred him to play the organ. Because we later realized that what the man was doing was more of a, I'm sorry to say this, was fraud. The organ player, he had this, when he was playing the hymns, every hymns, he tried to, and it made it easy for even people playing, even songs that were not even, normally when you play the hymns in a very, nice setting in Anglican Church, then they won't play because we want to hear all the parts, all the descants and all the extraneous parts. But the man had a way of putting rhythm, do. That everybody say, I want to play. You understand?
Yes.
But that is African way of playing for you. You understand? All this 20th century
that people could relate
with. All these 20th century styles of shifting of accents, shifting of time signature, you have 4/4 here, later you have 3/4, you have 5/4, is not African. So, and that's because everybody that learns to play an instrument must first learn to play a rhythmic instrument first, agogo, shekere, or so later when you now begin to play a proper instrument like trumpet. And also, asking your question directly now, I actually started by being a drummer.
Okay.
I started by playing a drummer, and when I joined the Boys Brigade, so I played snare drum to the point of even became a trainer in Oyo State then before getting into trumpet.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what would you consider your strength? Is it playing? Is it composing? Is it arranging? You sang at some point. Did you
Oh,
still
yeah,
sing?
yeah, I still sing.
Okay,
I
so
still
which of
sing.
these would you consider your strength currently?
While I was in Nigeria, I've always lived my life entirely in Nigeria before I moved into the US, which I mean is very recent. Though I was coming, but I'm into a few other countries too. But I will say that when we talk about strength, it evolves.
Absolutely.
You understand it? When you talk about classical music, one will say it is this. When you talk about dance music, you say it is this. And there are some that are a resultant effect. Like for example, if you run an highlight band, for example, you dance music, you don't just play instrumental, you have to sing. And whether your voice is good or not, you have to sing. And you see, voices being good is relative. Africans don't really care about the texture of your voice as long as they know the song they're singing.
That's really not, it's not the core of our culture.
It is not,
vocally.
Yeah, to say singing soprano, is a very good tenor, it's a mezzo soprano, it's a contrabass. No, that is a foreign culture. You open your mouth, you sing. As long as you know how to sing praises of people, as long as you raise songs that people know, and of course you can compose, write an institute there. You're a good singer. So, answering your question directly, I'm a trumpet player, and that's what I've done most extensively. I've played with so many A-list bands in Nigeria. I've toured with some of them. I played in so many recordings. I've done so many guests, artists, appearances on shows on. So I will say I'm most comfortable playing the trumpet. But if you tell me my choice, I want to play the organ. That's the father and the mother and the grandparents of all instruments.
Agree.
An organist is an orchestrator, and if you're an orchestrator, if you have good ears for orchestra and tone colors, you prefer the organ. So I prefer the organ.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. And so going back to things you've done in the past, you have played with bands, foremost Nigerian
bands
musicians.
and artists, yes.
Fela, you played for Soni Okosuns.
Soni Okosuns, yes.
What were those experiences like? How? Yeah.
Now the what I will say contribute. Well, that of Fela was incidental and accidental. To play Fela's band was a resultant effect of wanting to prove a point, and this is very funny. Proving a point because I started playing the trumpet in 1979 as a very young boy. Yeah, from being a learner, I became a master. I was very well known at Yemetu in Ibadan and Lagos, playing trumpet all about. But something that was very annoying to me then was, anytime I played the trumpet, you see some people, some older people that say, oh, that boy knows how to play the trumpet, but if you see Fela's trumpeters, those ones are
firebrands.
Every time I play, they say, oh, people can play trumpet, but Fela's trumpeters, those ones can play. So I made up my mind that I'll play with Fela.
Wow.
I made up my mind that one day I'll play with Fela. So it happened, excuse me, so it happened in 1987 when Fela was released from jail. FAT, took me to Jazz 38, a place called Jazz 38. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. At Ikoyi, Lagos. Then I was right on stage. That night when Fela came to Jazz 38, which was owned by Tunde Kuboye, the husband to his niece, Frances Kuboye. Frances Kuboye was the only child of Mrs. Oludolapo Ransom Kuti, Fela's sister. So Fela used to come there. So that was the very first night after serving his jail term. Then, so I was there, and Fela came straight on stage and asked the band to play "Water No Get Enemy." That was my first time of seeing Fela face to face. It was right on stage when he counted 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had to play, and that was an experience where I was almost urinating on my body. Yeah, I mean, when the person I've been reading about, I've heard so much about, walked straight on stage and faced the band, ready, 3, go. I mean, who wouldn't, misplayed or misbehaved then? So that was my experience. But of course, I played with so many other bands too. And believe me, I covered a lot of musical styles in Nigeria.
Wow.
I played with Fuji. I remember when Bobby Benson, a foremost Nigerian big band highlife musician who actually popularized highlife in Nigeria, modern highlife. He died in the very early 80s, 82, 83. When Bobby Benson died, of course his band, very tight big band, a big band like a big band jazz. So we had everything that, in fact, the band could pass for a big band jazz orchestra, but they were playing ballroom music, waltz, cha-cha-cha, merengue, pachanga, rumba. So they were playing all those kind of music, and of course a lot of high life music. So when the man died, his band, very well trained set of musicians, which included well-known names like Eddie Okonta, like Victor Olaya. There were so many people then that had played that band, that were band leaders. Rex Lawson, they were all part of Bobby Benson's band, but those one left and formed their band. So people that were in the band too were still very good. They had nowhere to go, and because Bobby Benson was known with the popular song "Taxi Driver," if you marry taxi driver, I don't care if you marry taxi. So the song was the most popular high life song at that time. And of course, the trumpet solo in that song was played by Eddie Okonta.
Okay.
So when Bobby Benson died, Alhaji Ayinde Barrister released a song then in memory of Bobby Benson, while he played the song. So instead of singing Sisi Siju, you know the shame, plenty Sisi is too much, he sang if you marry Bobby Benson, I don't care if you marry. So he now used trumpet for the first time. He introduced trumpet to Fuji music. There were 2 people that played the trumpet. I know them. I mean, I was born in the Boys Brigade then. We called the man Adetimeji. So Adetimeji joined Barrister's band, and trumpet became a very popular part of Fuji. So all other Fuji musicians started looking for trumpeters. So a friend of mine who we later played together in Femi Kuti's band, called Benga Lale Benga Becky, started playing for Wasiu Kwangwan. So there was another guy called he sang like Barrister.
Okay.
He sang like, I've forgotten his name, but I will remember his name. So he too wanted the drum, so they got me. So I was in Ibadan, the foremost trumpet player, playing with Fuji band. We were playing all over the street. So
just I'm not trying not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but all these experiences you mentioned all happening in Ibadan, not
Lagos.
Lagos at
You
this
see,
time.
Ibadan and Lagos. I remember the name now, Yeresawaba. That's not the Fuji musician, Yeresawaba. So I played trumpet for him. But you see, when you talk about politics and entertainment, believe me, Ibadan and Lagos are one and the same. They are the one and the same.
Okay.
One and the same because historically, remember that when Nigeria had 19 states, when we had the
Regions.
regional system of governance, the Southwest had its headquarters in Ibadan. So the best of musicians, the best of church musicians, the best of high life musicians, they were all in Ibadan. Victor Wifo, Eddie Okonta, even Fela, all of them are playing in Ibadan.
Interesting.
So even the best of church musicians. That's why some of the music of Ayo Bankole, later Ayo Bankole, the senior, some of those songs were composed in Ibadan. Some of those songs were composed in Ibadan. So Ibadan was a place where everybody was gravitating towards because it was the center of civilization. The secretariat in Ibadan was the secretariat for the entire Southwest. So all the rich men, every who is who was in Ibadan. Of course, with the University of Ibadan, Wole Soyinka was in it. So everybody was in Ibadan. So now, of course, Lagos being then the capital of Nigeria. So Lagos and Ibadan became one and same as in the headquarters of the country and the headquarters of the Southwest. So entertainment then, when you talk about any band that was here in Lagos, will be the same band that was here in Ibadan.
In Ibadan.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so enlightening to know these things about you, because having this personal conversation just makes you more relatable to people, because everyone just knows the popular batik, but we would never have had all of this, have known all of these things about you if
I will tell you that
that's so interesting.
I will tell you that the kind of music that I enjoy playing, which of course you are a master of classical music.
Thank you.
I know you are a fantastic mezzo soprano yourself.
Thank you.
For me, soprano is a soprano, but it's fantastic. Yeah. Do you know that music was first? The concert of classical music was first ever played in Ibadan. The very first musical concert of classical music was staged in Ibadan. It was staged in Ibadan, and that is why till today, Ibadan music circle at UI still remains one of the biggest nationwide. That's why the Oyeshikos, the Omideyis, they were all in Ibadan. They were doing concerts at UI. Okay. The concerts that we had in UI then, the very popular classical music, periodic classical music in Ibadan then became the tradition till today. But I'm sure we have reason to go into that.
We'll come to that. Yeah. We'll come to that. So before we do that, you also you started from the church.
Oh yeah.
And then you diverted to.
You went into the world.
You went into the world.
Yeah.
So, were you tied to a specific denominations? What was your experiences? Did you play the organ? Was it trumpet? Was it singing? In the church circle, what was it like?
Well, I joined the choir at St. Paul's Anglican Church, Yemetu Ibadan, in 1970. I was barely 4 years old then. I was 4 years old because anyone born in the year I was born cannot be older than me. I was born on the 1st of January. So the year I was born, I am the oldest person. So I joined the choir in 1970. And as a singer, in those days, when you join the choir, you have to start from the probation. You come to choir practice. Regularly, there's a register for probationers. So you have to make 3 months of scoring over 70% attendance. Then you will sing, but you won't rope on Sunday. So I sang, and I was in the choir. I was singing boy treble then. I was a treble. I became good that I was collecting awards. But then, because of the tradition then was, before you could join the choir, you must be able, before you could rope, you must be able to read music. So They were teaching us how to read the scores.
Music.
So, and later, when the choir masters then and the organist, when they noticed that a particular boy was showing exceptional interest in music, they asked him to become an organ boy. So I became an organ boy. What the organ boy would initially do was to get the organ ready for the service, be the one to open the organ, clean it up on Sunday before you go and robe. And later from being an organ boy, you become a page turner. When they see that you can read music, you are telling, so you begin to remind the organist that, oh, sir, can we use sentence for that song? Or can we use you begin to mention the names of tune
because you are becoming more and more familiar.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have so many, the library of the choir library then. Yeah. So before the organist comes, you will have opened the tunes, the one you're going to the tune Mandators. You open it from SSNS. You know the tune different things. You know YHB. You know MHB. You open them. You have to use something to hold the tune. And so by the time the organist is going to play the next tune, you put it in front of him. And so like the organ boy, you are actually like an assistant organist. You are not playing. And from there, you start with small wood to learn from there, and later by the time you begin to play, so they ask you to play some of the hymns and all that. I started then like that, became organ boy, organ cleaner, became page turner, and then later, but as at that time, the other side of music, which was high life, jazz. I mentioned the playing trumpet with bands. So that one took me, but I was still coming to rope. But I was making small money, small change playing with bands, and then juju. I played juju music too with one man called Biodun Adebiyi Batik, juju band. I was playing congas because I could play many instruments then. So, but eventually, when the church had problem with successive organists, the church insisted that they want a homeboy to take over. So I became one of the organists in the church, and I started playing the organ, and from there I was employed in another church. Same Anglican Church. Later, I became the music director at St. Paul's, the very famous St. Paul's Anglican Church, Breadfruit, which arguably is the oldest Anglican church in Lagos. Okay. So I became the organist and I became the director of music in that church. And interestingly, this last December, just about 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago, the church had its choir anniversary, and I was one of the people that were awarded. I was awarded as one of the people that contributed immensely to the growth of the choir. So I was given an award. So yeah, I started as a church musician.
Okay, so with all of your experiences in playing with big bands, all kinds of bands, did you still continue playing with the church?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that didn't stop you from playing.
Do you know that when I joined Fela's band officially, when Fela invited me in 1989 to join his band, I started playing on stage with him. He would come to Jazz 38 since 1986-87. He would come to Jazz 38, we'll play, and then later when we close, we'll be driven to the Africa Shrine where I was playing, and he would ask me on stage to come and play solo. And officially as a non-member of the band, there were quite a number of us that would go to the shrine then, because we were seen as proficient instrumentalists. So we go there, we play solos, and then 1989 Fela had a world tour with his band. We traveled, everywhere. The lead trumpet player ran away. We were using this like
that term
dropped.
Okay.
The lead trumpeter dropped. So And there was no phone, then there was no mobile phone. I just got to Jazz 38 that day on Friday, and there was noise everywhere from the gate man that, Fela sent for you that you should come to America to join, because the lead trumpeter ran away, and I was already famous as a solo player in Fela's band, and so asked me to, but eventually couldn't get me. So immediately Fela came back. The very day he came, he sent for me. So I was taken to his house, and he said, I need you to play in my band. That was how I became a member of Fela's band. And of course, there were several other bands too. Mm-hmm. There were stories to joining those bands.
Okay, so that is really quite a lot to take in. Yeah. We will have to come back on another episode to focus on African music.
Oh yeah.
All your experiences with bands, all the
yes, touring with bands, and
specifically African music.
Oh, yeah.
So we will come back on another edition if you do not mind, so we can really let you express where you have that much interest.
No
I know
problem
that you would enjoy hearing about African music from you, because that is what you've practiced for a while. I really appreciate that you took time to have this conversation with us, share your experiences with the world.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We hope you have enjoyed this. And like I just mentioned to Batik, we will be back with another part of this. Do not leave. And so until next time, it's goodbye from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thanks.